This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222. In the States, there are clinics that virtually test every embryo that they're going to put back on the basis that improving the success rate. However, why hasn't it taken off like that in Australia? Well, there are 2 or 3 reasons. The first is ultimately it doesn't improve the cumulative pregnancy rate. So if we put back an embryo with a genetic abnormality, which is what most embryos transferred these days aren't tested, the outcomes are likely to be a cycle that doesn't work or an early miscarriage. So that painful process is avoided if you do the genetic testing and only put back euploid embryos. But there are downsides. There's about a 2 or 3% chance of losing a good embryo in the process of taking the cells from the embryo and sending them off to the lab, freezing the embryo, and then thawing it for a transfer once the testing has been done. There are also questions about the accuracy of the genetic testing. When we biopsy the embryo at 5 days, the embryo consists of 2 sets of cells. There's the outer cells, the ones on the outside. Any of you that have sat in and had the embryo transfer done, where there's a nice big screen in front of you and the scientist shows you the embryo, what you'll see is around the outside are the cells that will eventually become the placenta, called the trophectoderm. And then inside the blastocele is the actual embryo, and that's a different set of cells, or it may be. When we biopsy the embryo, we're only testing the trophectoderm. And there have been studies showing that you can have an abnormal placental cell line and that the embryo inside is actually normal. It's probably uncommon, but it's a possibility. There have been ways tested to try and avoid the invasiveness of taking away 10 cells from the embryo. That's been done by testing the fluid in the culture medium that the embryo's been growing in and looking at the DNA, that's the chromosome material that's in the culture medium. Sadly, that's not particularly well correlated with what's in the embryo. Something like, at best, 85 to 90%. So to use that technique is not a good idea. This was something that Monash were trying, and sadly, they may well have thrown away embryos that potentially were normal. There's a lawsuit going on about that at the moment. So we don't do it that way. Another approach is to put a very fine needle into the blastocele, where the actual inner cell mass that will become the embryo is sitting, and taking that fluid. But that's very experimental, but still less invasive than taking away 10 of the 300 cells. So in Australia, we tend to reserve PGT for women who have recurrent implantation failure. So you've had 2, 3, 4 embryos put back, haven't got pregnant, and you're wondering why. Doing genetic testing can help select an embryo that's going to have a better chance of survival. This is particularly the case in older women. So if you are 40 years of age and you get 4 blastocysts, which would be a pretty impressive result, to be honest, for a 40-year-old. But if you've got 4 embryos, 3 of the 4 are almost certainly going to be genetically abnormal. So you would have had 3 embryo transfers that would never have worked. They were doomed already. So if we hone down on the one good one and put that back, your pregnancy rate, the background rate in a 40-year-old is something like 15 to 20% per embryo transfer. It jumps to 55% positive pregnancy test. So it certainly improves the situation dramatically, but it's no guarantee. And that's the other reason we don't necessarily do it on everybody in Australia, because while it improves success, it's certainly not giving you 100%.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.